You run into a problem, so you study the problem. You feel a threat forming, so you analyze the threat, its shape, its cause, where it's heading. You notice something going wrong in your life, so you stay aware of it. You check it. You keep it in view. And this feels like working. Analyzing feels productive. Checking feels responsible. And staying aware of what could go wrong. That is just intelligence. That is how smart people operate. They understand what they are dealing with before they act. But there is a number that changes what this activity actually cost. And almost no one has heard it. Your brain processes roughly 126 bits of conscious information per second. That's measured, not a metaphor. Following a single conversation cost about 60 of those bits. Nearly half your total capacity, just to track one person talking. There is no surplus, no reserve account, no background processor picking up the slack. That number is your entire construction budget for conscious experience, and every bit of it that goes to studying the problem is a bit that is physically unavailable for building the solution. Not shouldn't be spent on the problem, cannot be spent on the solution. The resource is physically committed before you even decide what you'd rather build. The resource is already committed. This means the more time you spend analyzing the cage, the more structurally complete the cage becomes, because attention is construction material. You are reinforcing what you're examining with the only resource that builds anything. And the thing you're not examining, the life you actually want, it's not on hold. It's being starved of the exact resource it needs to exist. This is Axiom 6, one of 46 I have documented by tracking where the same pattern appears across philosophy, psychology, and neuroscience. It predicts why your intentions keep losing to your attention, and why the thing you fear most keeps gaining structure the harder you work against it. And no one makes this visible like Cersei Lannister. At 10 years old, she receives a prophecy through predictions about how her life will be destroyed. And she spends the next 30 years pouring every unit of her attention into fighting those predictions. And by the end, the prophecy hasn't just come true. She built it, brick by brick, with the same budget she needed to build anything else. But first, how the budget actually works. You've heard that attention matters. Focus on your goals. Stay positive. Visualize success. You've heard it, and you have probably tried it. But the advice never explains why doing that doesn't produce the result. And if you've tried it, actually tried it, and found the results inconsistent, the issue isn't your commitment. It's a variable the advice leaves out. Because attention operates under a constraint that changes everything. It's zero sum. Here's what that looks like. Imagine you have a construction crew, 10 workers. That is all there is. You can't hire more. You can't borrow from another department. You cannot run a night shift. 10 workers is the total workforce. And you have 2 building sites. Site A is the life you are trying to build. The relationship, the career, the health, the version of yourself you've been working toward. Site B is the life you are trying to escape. The fear, the debt, the pattern, the thing that keeps showing up no matter what you do. Every morning you assign workers. What makes the budget problem worse than it sounds? You don't just lose workers when they go to Site B. Site B gains them. The workers doesn't sit idle at the wrong site. They build. They pour foundations. They frame walls. They run plumbing. Site B gets real infrastructure every single day. It has workers on it. Meanwhile, Site A, the thing you say you want, isn't just on pause. Scaffolding decays. Concrete cracks. Materials degrade. The site isn't waiting patiently for workers to come back. It's deteriorating in real time. So if 7 workers go to Site B every morning, checking it, analyzing its foundations, running diagnostics on how bad it is, then Site B gets 7 workers worth of construction. Load-bearing walls, permanent infrastructure. And Site A gets 3 workers trying to maintain what is already crumbling. The longer that allocation holds, the more finished Site B becomes, and the more ruined Site A becomes. Same crew, same day, 2 opposite outcomes, and both of them are being actively built. This is not a metaphor about positivity. It's resource economics, the same logic that governs any system with a fixed budget and competing demands. The crew is finite. There is no version of this where you can fully staff both. Where you send the crew is what gets built. Where you don't send them is what collapses. The budget is the mechanism. Everything else, the intentions, the goals, the affirmations, is just the story you tell yourself about where you think the crew should be going. Think about the last 7 days. What did you spend the most time mentally attending to? The thing you are trying to build, or the thing you are trying to escape? Don't judge the answer. Just notice which side had more workers. Hold that. We'll come back to it. In every scene you are about to see, watch for one thing. Where is Cersei's construction crew? Not what she says she wants. Not what she intends. Not what she tells herself she is protecting. Where is the budget actually going? Who's getting the workers? Because whoever's getting the workers is getting the building. Let's start with the brother she spent 3 years destroying. Remember the construction crew, then workers, 2 sides. What you're about to see is a 3-year budget allocation. Every worker Cersei assigns to destroy Tyrion is a worker she steals from building an alliance with the most intelligent Lannister. Watch which side gets the workers. On the surface, Cersei's hatred of Tyrion looks like a grudge. He's the dwarf brother she blames for killing their mother in childbirth. He drinks too much, talks too much, embarrasses the family name. If you watch casually, it reads as personal contempt, a sister who never accepted her youngest brother. But watch closer. Oberyn Martell visits Casterly Rock when Tyrion is still an infant. Years later, he tells Tyrion what he saw. In the nursery, Cersei is standing over the crib. She couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 years. She has the baby's genitals in her hand, pinching hard enough that Oberyn thought she might pull them off. And she's already narrating the assignment.
Then she and your brother took us to your nursery and she said he killed my mother. And she pinched your little cock so hard I thought she might pull it off. It doesn't matter. She told us, everyone says he will die soon. I hope they are right. He should not have lived this long.
This is not a grudge. This is a work order. The crew has its instructions, and the building has started before Tyrion can walk. Now track what the crew builds over the next 3 decades. Tyrion grows up brilliant, maybe the sharpest strategic mind in the family. He reads everything, understands political leverage, and in Season 2, he actually saves King's Landing during the Battle of the Blackwater. He rigs the harbor with wildfire, destroys Stannis Baratheon's fleet, and preserves the Lannister hold on the throne. And Cersei gives him nothing. No recognition, no title, no credit. She's watching him the entire time, but she's not watching what he builds. She's watching for confirmation that he's dangerous. And then she rigs the trial. Joffrey dies at his own wedding, poisoned. Cersei doesn't investigate, she assigns. Tyrion did this. The crew gets its most expensive work order yet. She buys witnesses. She turns Shae, Tyrion's lover, into a prosecution asset. She attacks the judges. She engineers every element of the trial so that the outcome is predetermined before Tyrion speaks a word. This is not grief over Joffrey. Watch what she does, not what she says. She smiles when Shae testifies. A visible flicker of satisfaction at the construction project's progress. The accusation is the building material, The witnesses are the workers. The courtroom is the site. She is constructing, Tyrion is the enemy, with every resource available to her. And Tyrion, who until this moment has been resentful but loyal, who saved this city, who served this family despite everything Cersei invested in destroying him. Tyrion stands in that courtroom and delivers the line that marks the exact moment the construction project produces its finished structure.
I did not kill Joffrey, but I wish that I had. I wish I was the monster you think I am. I wish I had enough poison for the whole pack of you.
Before that line, a bitter brother who still served the family. After it, the monster she built. He demands trial by combat. He is sentenced to death, but he escapes, kills their father Tywin, flees to Essos, crosses the sea, and becomes Hand of the Queen to Daenerys Targaryen, the woman who will burn Cersei's kingdom to the ground. Every step of that chain was funded by Cersei's crew. That courtroom is the finished building. Every brick laid by Cersei's construction crew across 3 years of allocated budget. And the building has a door, and Tyrion walks through it, across the narrow sea, and straight to the woman who will destroy everything Cersei built her power on. But notice what the budget framing makes visible, something the hatred narrative alone would miss. This is not just a story about making an enemy. This, then, is a story about losing an ally. The same person, the same resource. Cersei had one brother with the intelligence to actually help her govern, one mind sharp enough to outmaneuver her real threats, navigate political alliances, and keep the family intact when the pressure should have broken it apart. She could have assigned the crew to build Tyrion as a strategic partner, not to love him or care about him, just build the relationship of a partner. The same 10 workers, the same 30 years, a complete different building. But side B got the workers, the enemy got to build, and the ally, the version of Tyrion who saved King's Landing, who understood power, who could have been the most valuable person in her life. That side got nothing. It starved. And by the time Tyrion is standing on a ship to Essos, it's not the prophecy that destroyed the alliance. It's the budget. You've done a version of this. You have had someone in your life, a partner, a colleague, a family member, where you decided what they were before they showed you. And then you spend years sending your crew to that site, checking their failures, cataloging their offenses, building the case. And one day you look up and the relationship you'd been complaining about was the one you had been constructing. Every worker on the "they are the problem" side was a worker missing from the "we could actually work" side. You built that, not because they were the enemy, because the budget was assigned to the enemy project, and the ally project starved. Tyrion was one line of the prophecy. Cersei's budget had 3 assignments, and now, with the mechanic visible, it's time to name what you just watched operating. What you just watched has a name. Axiom 6. Attention is alignment. Attention is alignment, and intention counts for, well, not nothing, but close. Intention counts for almost nothing if your attention is chained to the thing you are trying to escape. Cersei's intention was to protect her children. Her attention was chained to the prophecy. The intention lost. It always does. The principle underneath what you just saw. Your life is not a random collection of things happening to you. It's a precise reflection of where your sustained awareness has been living. Not what you wish were true, and not the plan you wrote down in January. What you actually kept attending to, hour after hour, week after week. That's the blueprint reality works from. Not a metaphysical claim, a resource claim. Trackable, measurable, testable against your own week. Here's what the standard advice treats as optional. Intention and attention are not the same thing. Intention is what you say you want. Attention is where your focus actually lives. Not for 20 minutes during a practice session, but sort of across the entire day. The whole thing. You can intend one thing while attending to its opposite, and the attention wins. Reality doesn't take instructions from your intention. It organizes around whatever receives your sustained focus. And this is what makes it dangerous. Attention isn't a preference. It's the hand on the steering wheel, the instruction set that tells your psychology, your behavior, your pattern recognition where to point. When your attention lives on the threat, your entire system orients around the threat. Not because you choose that, but because attention is the operating instruction. The conscious mind that says, "I want out," is overruled by the sustained focus that says, "the cage is what matters." And the sustained focus wins. Every time. Not sometimes. Not when you are weak. Every time. At least in every case I've been able to document. And I've been looking for the exception. This is where mainstream manifestation advice breaks down, and it breaks down in a specific, mechanical way. Of course, the standard advice isn't wrong. Focus on what you want. That is true, but it's incomplete in a way that makes it dangerous. It treats attention like a light switch you flip. 20 minutes of visualization in a 16-hour waking day is about 2% of your total attention budget. If the other 98% is attending to what's wrong, replaying the worst case, checking what is failing, scanning for evidence that is not working, then the visualization isn't an investment. It's a rounding error. And reality doesn't respond to rounding errors. The real mechanic isn't about the direction of your focus in a single moment. It's about where your attention lives across every waking hour. This is a resource problem, not a positivity problem, and it requires a resource solution. I believe that people frustrated with manifestation, as well as those who dismiss it as woo, should understand why it fails and how it must be defended. The mechanics, the timeline, the internal struggle, not just be told to visualize, detach, and believe. The fix isn't to think positively. The fix is to close the gap between where your intent to focus and where your attention actually lives. And that gap is what makes the next proof devastating, because it shows what happens when Cersei doesn't just build one enemy, but constructs an entire institution designed to destroy the younger queen the prophecy promised. Where does her attention go? And what stops getting any attention at all? With Tyrion, Cersei's attention built a single enemy. The cost was one lost ally. Now watch what happens when she allocates the same resource to building an entire institution. A weapon she designs, funds, and aims. Because this time the construction project doesn't just produce an enemy. It turns around and consumes the person who built it. The prophecy's second instruction arrives in person. Margaery Tyrell, younger, more beautiful, beloved by the people, and now married to Cersei's son Tommen. Cersei watches Margaery charm the court, win the small folk, and pull Tommen's loyalty away from his mother. And her attention gets its new assignment: destroy the younger queen. But Tyrion was one person. Margaery is a house. The Tyrells have wealth, alliances, and a grip on the food supply to King's Landing. Cersei cannot simply rig a trial this time. She needs an institution. So she builds one. She reinstates the Faith Militant, a religious military order that had been dormant for centuries. She elevates a barefoot preacher called the High Sparrow to High Septon, the most powerful religious position in Westeros. She hands him Loras Tyrell, Margaery's brother, as an offering, engineering his arrest for sins she knows the Faith will prosecute. Every one of those moves is an attention decision. Workers assigned to destroy the younger queen, workers not assigned to, maintaining her son's trust, securing alliances, governing the realm she's supposed to be running. But then the weapon turns. Lannister Lannister, Cersei's former lover, now a convert to the faith she empowered, confesses their affair. The institution Cersei built with her unsustained attention arrests its builder. The faith militant, the weapon she created, funded, and aimed at Margaery, now has Cersei in a cell. And then comes the walk of atonement. They shear her hair. They strip her. They walk her naked through the streets of King's Landing, while Sept rings a bell behind her. The crowd trots foot, spits, screams. The queen who orchestrated this entire institution is now its most public product. Watch Cersei's face during the walk. Lena Headey does something here that no dialogue could carry. The face is controlled, locked. The eyes don't break.
Shame! Shame! Shame!
Fuck off!
Shame! Shame! Shame!
Cersei is performing composure, the absence of destruction, while experiencing total destruction. She will not give them the satisfaction of seeing what is caused. And that gap between what she shows the crowd and what is happening inside her is the cost of the construction project made visible. She built this. Every stone the crowd stands on, every bell Unella rings, every hand that reaches toward her, all of it was funded by the same attention she could have spent on anything else. After the walk, after the humiliation, after the institution she built has consumed her own dignity, Cersei is challenged one more time. Her response:
The High Septon commands you. Are you sure you want to refuse him? Order your man to step aside or there will be violence.
I choose violence.
3 words, and with them, the last trace of strategic calculation disappears. Every remaining unit of attention goes to destruction. The contradiction is precise. Cersei's stated goal throughout all of this: protect her family, maintain power. Cersei's actual attention allocation: build a weapon she cannot control, using resources stripped from governance, family, and self-preservation. And the chain shows you something. because each link produces the next. The attention built the Fate militant. The Fate built Cersei's cell. The cell built the Walk. And the Walk built I Choose Violence. Each step is the previous attention decision's output, becoming the next attention decision's input. The construction project is consuming its own contractor. With Tyrion, Cersei's attention built one enemy. With the Fate, her attention built an institution, and the institution built back. You have constructed elaborate structures to protect yourself from something you feared. Surveillance in a relationship. Preemptive strikes at work. Walls so thick that the person you build them against couldn't reach you even if they wanted to. And then the defense system itself became the thing destroying what you were protecting. The monitoring killed the trust. The preemptive strikes created the conflict. The walls lock you inside. You build a weapon. The weapon didn't care who built it. You've seen the pattern twice now, and part of you is already pushing back. The analytical part of your brain is doing exactly what it should right now. It's saying that this is a fictional character. You are pattern matching on a TV show. Cersei was written to fail. Real people don't operate this way. And maybe it's also saying, this is confirmation bias. You pick the scenes that prove your point and skip the ones that don't. Of course, those are good objections. Most content in the manifestation space deserves them. I have watched videos that will collapse under exactly this critique, a vague principle, and then a declaration that reality works this way. If that were what this is, you should close the tab. The reason I use fiction isn't because it proves the mechanic, it's because fiction makes the mechanic visible. In real life, you can't watch someone's attention allocation unfold across 30 years in compressed time. In a story, the writers show you exactly where the attention goes and exactly what it produces. The story is the X-ray. The mechanic is in the bones. I'm not asking you to believe that Cersei's prophecy proves anything about your life. I'm asking you to notice a pattern in your own attention. The 126-bit number isn't from a manifestation book. It's from the psychologist Csikszentmihalyi's research at the University of Chicago. The zero-sum constraint isn't mystical. It's the same resource economics that govern any finite system. If you track where your attention actually lives across 7 days, not where you intended to go, where it actually goes, the dominant allocation will match your dominant results, not your intentions, not your affirmations, your attention. If that prediction is wrong, the model doesn't apply to you, and that is not fate. That is a testable claim. You don't have to believe any of this, but I want to show you where Cersei's attention got its original assignment. The moment at 10 years old when 3 spending instructions were installed. And then I want to show you what the research says about why attention defaults to threat in the first place. If the pattern holds through the evidence, you will know. And if it doesn't, you will know that too. Where does an attention assignment this destructive come from? How does someone lock their entire focus onto the wrong target for 30 years and never redirect? With Cersei, we can trace it to a single night. She's maybe 10 years old. She pushes through the flap of a tent in the woods outside Casterly Rock. Inside is a woman named Maggie the Frog, rumored to see the future, feared by the servants, avoided by everyone with sense. Cersei didn't come because she's afraid. She came because she wants what's hers. She demands her fortune. She doesn't ask. She's already commanding. Maggie takes her hand, draws blood from her finger. That drop of blood is the price of the assignment. Cersei pays with blood. Maggie pays with 3 sentences that will organize every decision Cersei makes for the next 3 decades. First,
You'll be queen. For a time. Then comes another. Younger. More beautiful. To cast you down and take all you hold dear.
second,
Will the king and I have children?
The king will have 20 children. And you will have 3.
third,
Gold will be their crowns. Gold. Their shrouds.
3 predictions, 3 threat vectors. And here's where the trap closes. The first 2 come true. Robert does have bastards. Cersei does become queen. And the queen she was promised to replace her does eventually arrive. 2 for 2. Any rational person watching the first 2 predictions prove accurate will take the third one seriously. The viewer would. You would. And that is the moral trap. Checking the prophecy isn't paranoia. It's pattern recognition. The data supports the conclusion. Cersei's attention assignment doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels like intelligence. She's not obsessing. She's responding to confirmed evidence. The monitoring feels rational. And rational monitoring is still monitoring. It still costs the same budget. But the prophecy doesn't arrive in a vacuum. It lands on soil that's already prepared. Layer 1. Tywin's parenting. Cersei grows up in a house where threats are not managed. They are annihilated. You don't negotiate with enemies. You destroy them before they form. Preemptive destruction isn't cruelty in Tywin's world. It's survival. And his daughter learns, if you see a threat, you eliminate it. Completely. Layer 2. Gender. Cersei has Jaime's instincts, Tywin's ambition, and a woman's constraints in Westeros. She cannot lead armies. She cannot hold land in her name. She controls through proxies, through children, through lovers, through institutions she elevates and aims. Every avenue of power available to her is indirect, which means she cannot fight threats head-on. She can only watch for them and maneuver around them. Monitoring isn't just a habit. It's the only tool she has. Layer 3. The prophecy. 3 threat vectors, 2 already confirmed, arriving into a mind that's been trained to eliminate threats immediately, and a life that only permits indirect action. By the time Cersei is old enough to hold power, her attention already has its permanent assignments. A scan for the younger queen, a scan for her younger brother, a scan for the shrouds. There are no workers left for anything else. This is where most analysis stops. They say Cersei was shaped by trauma and prophecy, but that doesn't explain the mechanism. It doesn't answer the question that actually matters. Why does an attention assignment, once installed, stay installed? Why can't she just stop monitoring? She's intelligent. She sees the cost. So why can't she redirect? There is a reason. And it's not willpower failure. If the model is accurate, your attention got its original assignment too. Not from a witch in a tent, from something slower. A parent's repeated warning. The specific thing they taught you to watch for. A school experience that trained your focus onto a particular threat. A relationship that installed a checking program you're still running years after the relationship ended. The assignment wasn't dramatic. It was installed through repetition. And like Cersei's, it felt rational at the time. It still feels rational now. And that is why it's still running. So the assignment gets installed early. But why does it stay? Why cannot you just redirect? The research has an answer for that, and it's worse than you think. The 126-bit ceiling we started with, Csikszentmihalyi actually measured. He spent decades at the University of Chicago studying creativity and optimal experience. He had no interest in manifestation. But what his research documented maps directly onto the mechanic we've been watching Cersei demonstrate. What he proved, and this is the part that changes the whole conversation, is that attention operates like energy. It's finite. It's conservable. It performs real cognitive work, the kind that determines what enters your conscious experience and what doesn't. and the total budget caps at that 126-bit threshold with no exceptions. Here's the insight the number leads to. Everything outside your attentional being doesn't just get deprioritized. It ceases to exist in your conscious experience. When Cersei's 126 bits are allocated to scanning for the younger queen, the information Marguerite could be an ally isn't filed away for later. It's gone. It never enters her awareness. The budget determines what's real for you. Nothing else does. Her 126 bits weren't poorly allocated. They were fully allocated. There was no surplus left for anything else. What neuroscientist Bo Nomano documented at UCLA adds a second constraint that makes the budget problem worse. Your brain doesn't just have a limited attention budget. That budget is temporally biased. It's a documented phenomenon called temporal discounting. The brain neurologically devalues future rewards relative to present ones. Not because future outcomes are less important, but because your ancestors, and we're all talking deep evolutionary time here, who grabbed the immediate berry survived at higher rates than those who waited for the larger harvest. So that bias is still running. And it means your 126 bits aren't just finite. They are wasted. Present threats get priority allocation. They arrive at full attentional value. Vivid, urgent, demanding a response. Future states, including whatever reality you are trying to build, are automatically discounted. The further out the reward, the less attentional weight it receives. The budget isn't just finite, it's rigged toward the immediate. So not only is your attention budget limited to 126 bits, but those bits are weighted toward whatever is threatening you right now. The fear that's present today gets fully budgetary value. The life you are trying to build someday gets discounted before you even begin. Watch this operating in real time. Cersei's present fear. Marguerite is in the castle right now, charming Tommen right now, winning the court right now. Gets full attentional value. Every bit of it. The future consequence of harming the Fate militant, a cost that won't arrive for months, is discounted, nearly invisible. The budget allocates to the immediate threat automatically. The future cost starves, and by the time that cost arrives, the walk, the sell, the humiliation, the building is already finished. She funded the destruction before the discount rate let her see the price. This, then, is a double constraint. Your budget is finite. That's Csikszentmihalyi, and it's biased toward the present. That's Bo Nomano. Every time you try to hold a sustained emotional state oriented toward a future outcome, and I mean truly hold it, not the 20-minute version, you are fighting two rigged systems simultaneously. the 126-bit ceiling, and the temporal discount rate. The present problem gets funded automatically. The future state has to fight for every bit of attention against a neural architecture designed to prioritize what's in front of you right now. This isn't a belief failure. It's an architectural mismatch between what you are trying to do and what the system was built for. There's a pattern in how these constraints get exploited. Not a conspiracy exactly, more like an automatic system. I call it the totalitarian ego. It doesn't need to overpower you. It just needs to keep the budget allocated where it already is. It knows the budget is limited, so it floods the channel with monitoring requests. Is the thread still there? Check again. Has anything changed? Check again. Each check costs bits. Each bit spent checking is a bit unavailable for building. The ego doesn't need to convince you to abandon your practice. It just needs to convince you to check on the problem one more time. And then one more. And then one more. The budget bleeds out in monitoring demands that feel like vigilance. And it uses temporal discounting as a weapon. This meditation isn't producing results right now. The threat is real right now. The bills are due right now. Allocate to the threat. You can get back to the estate work later. But later never comes. Because later, there is a new present threat. The discount rate resets every morning. The future state never catches up. Cersei's version ran this pattern with perfect clarity. Check on Tyrion. Is he plotting? Check on Marguerite. Is she winning Tommen? Check on the prophecy. Is it happening yet? Each check is a work order. Each work order builds the side she's supposedly defending against. The ego doesn't build the feared outcome directly. It builds it through monitoring demands. One bit at a time. Remember the Axiom 5 video, the filter, how your brain determines what information gets through to consciousness. Axiom 6 is the next layer. The filter doesn't just bias what you see, it allocates the construction budget that determines what you build. Axiom 5 told you that you are perceiving a biased reality. Axiom 6 tells you that you are constructing one. Perception is the filter. Construction is the budget. They worked together, and they compound. You've seen the budget build one enemy. You've seen it build one institution. Now watch what happens when every remaining bit gets allocated to destruction. And the last thing the budget was supposed to protect is the thing it kills. Everything you've seen so far, the brother she made into an enemy. The institution that swallowed her whole. Those were partial allocations. Cersei still had other projects running. She was still governing, still scheming, still playing the game with at least some of her attention split across competing priorities. What you are about to see is what happens when the budget goes total, when every remaining bit gets assigned to a single instruction. Destroy everything the prophecy sent. No reserve for governance. None for family. None for the future. Watch what gets purchased, and watch what starves while she's paying for it. By the end of Season 6, Cersei has identified the solution. Not a political maneuver, not another proxy war. A single, irreversible act that eliminates every threat the prophecy produced, all at once. Catches of wildfire, the volatile green substance that burned the Targaryen dynasty's enemies for centuries, have been sitting beneath the city for decades. Cersei positions them beneath the Sept of Baelor, the great cathedral at the center of King's Landing. And then she waits for the morning of her trial. The Sept feels Margaery Tyrell, the younger, more beautiful queen, Loras Tyrell, the leverage she used to arm the Fate and lost control of, the High Sparrow, the weapon she built that imprisoned her, humiliated her, stripped her naked in front of the city. Mace Tyrell, half the court. Every person who took something from her gathered in one stone room one morning. And Cersei doesn't go. She dresses carefully. She chooses black, the first time she's worn anything other than Lannister crimson or royal gold. She stands at the window of the Red Keep, looking out over the city toward the Sept, and she pours wine. She sips while the Sept fills with everyone who is about to die. This is the posture of someone who has already spent the budget. The transaction is complete. She's watching the delivery arrive. Inside the Sept, Margaery figures it out. She sees the empty chair where Cersei should be sitting. She reads the room faster than anyone.
There's something wrong.
We cannot escape the justice of the gods.
Forget about the bloody gods and listen to what I'm telling you. Cersei understands the consequences of her absence, and she is absent anyway, which means she does not intend to suffer those consequences.
Margaery tries to evacuate. The Fate militant blocks the doors. The weapons Cersei built won't let them leave. The wildfire ignites. Green light. The floor of the Sept lifts. The walls blow outward. Hundreds of people disappear in a single frame. Margaery, the younger queen who was supposed to cast Cersei down, gone. The High Sparrow, the institution Cersei armed and lost, gone. The Tyrells, the Fate, the court, all of it in one expenditure. For a moment, the prophecy is answered. The younger queen is dead. The weapon is destroyed. The enemies are ash. Every threat Cersei spent decades monitoring has been eliminated in a single morning. If attention is alignment, This is what total alignment to destruction purchases. And then there is Tommen. Tommen, her youngest. The last child. The last of the three whose crows will become shrouds. He's been watching from his own window in the Red Keep. A boy king who just watched his mother annihilate his wife, his court, and his city. He stands at the window. He watched the green fire swallowed the Sept. He watched the smoke rise. He removes his crown. He steps forward, out of the frame. The thing Cersei spent her entire budget defending, her children's lives, is the thing the budget killed. Not because the prophecy was magic, because every unit of attention she allocated to destroying the threats around Tommen was a unit she didn't allocate to being present with Tommen, to noticing what he was becoming, to seeing that a boy who watches his mother burn a city isn't a boy who wants to keep wearing the crown. She wasn't in the Sept, but she also wasn't with her son. And that's the part that's hard to sit with. Cersei is told. She goes to the body. She orders Tommen burned, the way Targaryens burned their dead, not the way Lannisters honor theirs. Something in the instruction has already shifted. Then she walks to the throne room. The crown is placed on her head. The room is nearly empty. A few soldiers, a few retainers, the whole of architecture of absolute power. This is the thing she spent 30 years building toward. The throne. Unchallenged. Every rival eliminated. Every prophecy line answered. And Lina's face does something that no dialogue could carry. It holds, controlled and dry. The eyes don't search the room. They don't celebrate. They don't grieve in any way the camera can catch. What you see is someone standing inside a building they spend every resource constructing, and finding that it has no rooms. The walls are up, the structure is complete, and there is nothing inside it. No children, no family, no one who chose to be there. The budget built exactly what it was told to build. It built destruction, and it built it perfectly. And this is where the budget completes its work. 3 predictions, 3 decades of sustained attention. Every beat, every one of those 126 beats, sent to the same 3 sites. A scan for the younger queen, a scan for her younger brother, a scan for the shrouds. The younger queen arrived because Cersei's governing failures caused by diverting attention to prophecy management instead of statecraft, created the power vacuum the Tyrells filled. Margaery didn't invade. She walked through an open door that Cersei's inattention left unlocked. Her younger brother became the enemy because Cersei's sustained persecution built him into one. Tyrion didn't start as a threat, He started as the most capable strategist in the family. He became the threat because the budget constructed him that way, brick by brick, trial by trial, until he walked through a door she had been building for 30 years. These shrouds came because the budget had no workers left for the one project that could have prevented them being present for her children. Not scheming for them, not defending them from prophecy, being there, seeing Tommen, noticing that the green fire would do to a boy who loved his wife. The prophecy didn't predict the future. It allocated the attention. And the attention built everything it was pointed at. 3 predictions, 3 attention assignments, 3 completed buildings, none of which were the buildings she intended. The model doesn't require a single line of dialogue to be different. It just requires you to track where the budget went. The thing you are guarding most fiercely right now, the relationship you are terrified of losing, the financial security you check on every morning, the career you have grabbed your identity around. Ask yourself one question. How much of your daily attention goes to protecting it? And how much goes to building it? Because Cersei protected her children's future every single day. She devoted her entire life to making sure the prophecy didn't take them. She just never built a relationship with them. She never sat with Tommen long enough to know what he needed. The entire budget went to the fortress. There was nothing left for what the fortress was supposed to contain. And the thing she was defending, the thing she cared about more than anything in the world, starved to death inside the walls she built around it. The fortress was the problem. 3 proofs, 3 decades, 1 budget. Now, what does this look like when it's not happening on a stage in Westeros? When it's happening in the life you're actually living? You have been catching glimpses of this throughout. The brother you convicted before he showed you who he was. The defense system that became the thing destroying you. The practice session followed by 6 hours of checking whether it's working. The fortress you built so carefully around the thing you loved that you forgot to tend to what was inside it. I don't need to convince you the pattern exists. You have already been recognizing it. What I want to do now is put it somewhere you might not have looked yet. At work, this budget operates through what you rehearse. Think about the last time you had to present something. A pitch, a meeting, a difficult conversation with your manager. How did you prepare? Most people spend the majority of their preparation time on what could go wrong. They rehearse the tough questions. They build contingency plans for the objection they are dreading. They imagine the room turning cold. And then, This is the part nobody admits. They spent 20 minutes on the version where they forgot their own name in front of the VP. By the time they walk into the actual meeting, they have invested 4 hours of attention into this could fail, and maybe 20 minutes into here's what I actually want to say. And then when the presentation feels tight, defensive, and anxious, when they stumble through the part where they are supposed to make the case for themselves because they barely rehearsed that part, they call it nerves. It wasn't nerves. The budget was 4-1 in favor of failure. The failure side had load-bearing walls. The success side had a sketch on a napkin. The output matched the investment. Or take the promotion you've been circling. How much of your weekly attention goes to worrying whether you will get it, scanning your manager's tone, monitoring for the colleague you think is ahead of you, rehearsing what you will do if it doesn't happen, and how much goes to building the thing that will make you undeniable. If you are honest, the ratio isn't close. You've been funding the surveillance operation and calling it ambition, right? The deepest version of this isn't about any particular goal. It's about who you are constructing yourself to be. If the budget model is correct, identity is built the same way everything else is, through sustained attention. Whatever you attend to most consistently about yourself is the version of you that solidifies. And most people's dominant allocation about themselves is some version of, I'm the one who struggles with this. Not because they choose that, because the attention kept going there, through comparison, through self-monitoring, through replaying past failures as evidence of permanent condition, and the identity got built by the investment. 3 questions. Don't answer them out loud. Just let the answer form. Number 1. If someone could pull up a pie chart of your attention over the last 30 days, every bit accounted for, what would be the biggest slice? Would it be the thing you want? Or would it be the thing you are afraid of? Number 2. How long after your practice, whatever your practice is, do you go before checking whether it's working? An hour, 20 minutes. That check is a withdrawal from one side and a deposit into the other. The gap between the practice and the check is the gap between intention and attention. Number 3. What is the one thing in your life that keeps getting worse despite the fact that you are working on it? Now ask the harder question. Is working on it actually code for attending to it? Because those aren't the same thing. One builds toward a solution. The other builds a more detailed map of the problem. And the budget doesn't distinguish between studying the cage and reinforcing it. The budget doesn't read your journal. It doesn't hear your affirmations. It doesn't care what you told your therapist you want. It reads one thing, where your sustained attention actually went today. And whatever received the most bits received the most construction. The mechanism doesn't negotiate, but it can be redirected. That's next. So can the budget actually be redirected? Or is this one of those patterns that's visible but permanent? It can be redirected, but not the way you have been trying. If you've tried thinking positive, and most of the people watching this have, you already know what it produces. A short practice window outnumbered by hours of counter investment. That wasn't a discipline failure. That was a budget mismatch. The actual solution is budget reallocation, not through willpower. Willpower is just another expenditure. Through awareness first, then architecture. You cannot reassign workers you haven't located. So the process starts with finding them. For the next 3 days, set 4 alarms at random times throughout your waking hours. Spaced out, not clustered in the morning, not stacked during your practice window, random. When the alarm fires, capture what your mind was just attending to, not what you were doing physically, what the attention was building. Write it down in 2 words or less. Worrying about rent, planning pitch, replaying argument, imagining beach house. Whatever was occupying the 126 bits at the moment the alarm interrupted. Here's why the audit comes first. You cannot reallocate a budget you haven't measured. Everyone thinks they know where their attention goes. Cersei thought she was protecting her children. The data would have shown her she was funding the prophecy. The gap between where you think your attention lives and where it actually lives is the entire problem. And the audit closes that gap. One rule: don't judge what you capture. Collect data. That's all this step does. After 3 days, you will have roughly 12 captures. Take them and sort them into 2 columns. Column A: attention that was building towards something you want. Your goal, your desired state, the life you are actively constructing. Column B: attention that was checking, defending against, or analyzing something you fear. The threat, the gap, the thing that isn't working yet. Count the entries in each column. That count is your budget report. It's the same information you had about Cersei by the end of Proof 1. You can see, in plain numbers, where the crew has been going. If column B has 8 entries and column A has 4, you're looking at a 2-to-1 allocation in favor of the thing you don't want. The distance between those 2 columns is the distance between your intention and your attention. Don't try to fix the ratio immediately. Awareness comes before redirection. Cersei's deepest failure wasn't that she couldn't redirect, it's that she never once looked at where the attention was actually going. She assumed the budget matched her intentions. It never did. You now have something she never had: the actual numbers. Now the audit is running. You're catching yourself at Site B throughout the day, replaying the worst case, checking the gap, scanning for evidence that the first tank is still out there. The question becomes, what do you do in that moment? You don't fight it. You don't suppress it. You don't force a positive thought over the top of it. Forcing a positive thought is its own budget expenditure. You're now spending bits on a third project called Battling My Own Mind. And that project draws workers from both sides. You are worse off than before you tried. Instead, do something simpler. Acknowledge that Side B exists. Yes, the fear is there. Yes, the problem is real. And then ask one question. What would I be attending to right now if Side B were already finished? Not what do I wish were true. Not what should I be thinking about. What would you actually be paying attention to? What would occupy your 126 bits if the thing you are building were already built? Then attend to that. Not as wish, as a construction instruction. You're handing the crew a new work order. There is a concept that's been documented independently for about 2500 years. Different traditions, different purposes, none of them aimed at manifestation. Same operational instruction. What Lao Tzu documented in the Tao Te Ching is mirror mind, reflecting without grasping, maps to this exact mechanic. The mirror sees what's in front of it without building more of it. It reflects the fear without investing additional bits into the fear's infrastructure. When you acknowledge Side B without pouring more attention into it, you stop the construction. When you redirect to what would I attend to if it were done, you hand the crew a new assignment. The crew doesn't have preferences. It builds whatever receives the sustained attention. The key is the word effortless. The redirect isn't a fight. It's a reassignment. You notice where the attention went. You acknowledge it. You give it a different instruction. The energy you save by not fighting, by not turning the redirect into a battle, is energy that's now available for the new side. Redirection only works if you also reduce the fuel going to the old side. Otherwise you are redirecting all day and the old habits are reallocating all night. Identify your top 3 Sides B habits, the 3 activities that consume the most attention on the project you don't want. These aren't always obvious. It might be the news cycle you check every morning, the one that primes you before you finished your coffee. It might be the group chat where you vent about the problem for 45 minutes and call it processing. Or it's the scroll, the late night one. The one where you compare your progress to someone else's highlight reel and tell yourself you're just relaxing. Pick one, reduce it by 30 minutes per day. Not eliminate, reduce. And redirect those 30 minutes to something specific on Site A. not meditation, unless meditation is the action that directly builds your Side A project. Not journaling about your feelings, unless the journaling is a concrete construction step. The distinction is whether the activity adds to the structure or just makes you feel like you're adding to the structure. Every bit you withdraw from Side B is a bit now available for Side A. The zero sum works in both directions. You're not deleting a habit. You are replacing an allocation. Substitution costs less than suppression. The attention has to go somewhere. Give it somewhere productive to go. Don't try to start all three at once. That's a budget overextension. The same mistake Cersei made, just pointed in the opposite direction. One reallocation at a time. Sustainable construction. At the end of this, and whatever your results are, you have evidence you generated on your own. And that's more valuable than anything I can tell you. Yours operates the same way. It will build whatever receives the sustained investment. The question was never whether the mechanism is running. It's been running your entire life. The question is whether you are the one writing the work orders, or whether something else has been reading them for you. And you don't have to take my word for that. You have your audit results to find out. Axiom 6 is one layer, but it doesn't operate alone. It's part of a system. 3 axioms that run simultaneously, each governing a different piece of the same process. Axiom 5 governs the filter, what information gets through to your conscious awareness in the first place. Your brain cannot process everything, so it selects. It waves certain data through and blocks the rest before you ever see it. That's the layer that determines what you perceive. Axiom 6 governs the budget. Once information gets through the filter, your attention allocates to it. And that allocation is the construction instruction. The budget determines what you build. But neither of those layers answers the question you should be asking by now. What sets the default? Why does fear get automatic funding? Why does the filter let threats through more easily than opportunities? Why does the budget allocate to Side B before you even wake up in the morning? That's the third layer, and it's the one that controls the other two. Understand why it's failing, learn to defend it, the mechanics, the timeline, the internal struggle, not because someone told you to believe harder, but because you tracked the pattern and decided the data was worth acting on. That's the work. If you haven't seen the Axiom 5 video, where I break down Kim Wexler's filter using Better Call Saul, watch that next. It teaches the first layer, how your brain decides what gets through to consciousness and what gets blocked before you ever see it. Kim's traffic officer was following instructions she never consciously gave. Cersei's budget was building sites she never consciously chose. Same system, different layer. You need both to see the full picture. And the third layer, Axiom 7, is what I'm building next. It addresses the question that Axiom 5 and 6 cannot resolve on their own. Why does the filter default to threat? Why does the budget default to fear? There is a pattern more fundamental than attention, more fundamental than perception, and if the model is consistent, it should be the one writing the default instructions that your filter follows and your budget funds. It's been running underneath everything I've shown you today, and it explains why Think Positive doesn't just fail, it makes the problem worse. 3 layers, 1 system, the filter selects, the budget builds, and something underneath both of them is setting the defaults. That third layer is next.